Well, hello there, listeners. On this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast, we're talking about fear. Being so scared that it holds you back from the things that you want to accomplish in your life, the dry mouth, the self-doubt, the sweat rolling down your back. But the brave among us, we have a secret. It is not that we don't feel those things. It's that we push past them. And I want to share with you how I do it, how I help some of my clients do it, and what's going on in your neurophysiology that makes it happen in the first place. How, you might ask? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. So like, follow, subscribe, and let's get to it. Well, hello there, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the Better Than Fine podcast. I'm your host, wellness coach and well-being educator, Darlene Marshall, and today I want to talk about something that comes up all the time in my world. It comes up in client calls, it creeps into my DMs, a lot in my emails, my conversations, my workshops, and honestly, it happens quite often in my own mirror as I'm giving myself pep talks. And I'm talking about being scared. Being afraid to take that next big step, to do the next big leap, to try something new that feels overwhelming and a little bit terrifying. And I think just about everyone knows that feeling of that moment, the hesitation, that flush in your face. For me, it is like a hot redness creeping up my neck. It even feels a little bit like embarrassment because when I realize that I'm a little anxious and afraid, I start to feel a little embarrassed too. Maybe some sweat down your back, your mouth goes dry, and your mind is feeding you all kinds of nonsense. Things like, you're going to look stupid. People are going to judge you. You think that you're ready? You really think that you're ready for this? Because everybody else is going to see how much you couldn't pull it off and that you really don't have the stuff. Maybe you've got your own flavor of what your mental chatter sounds like. Those are some of the things that my brain says to me and some of the things that clients have told me that their brains say to them. And then along with it starts to come in that doubt of, well, what's my high school best friend's cousin going to say behind my back? Or what's my mom's friends and coworkers going to say to her about me? And I'm going to hear it through the game of telephone over Sunday dinner. And then you start to wonder, should I really do this? Am I just being ridiculous? Am I just going to be one of those people that looks like an absolute clown out there on social media? How do you know when you listen to that voice? And how, when you're so certain that you should, how do you get yourself to do it anyway? That's what I want to talk about on the show today, because sometimes on this show here on Better Than Fine, sometimes we talk about research or we pull in an expert and we dive really deep on a particular topic of their expertise. And some of the shows peek behind the curtain. They are meant to be a pep talk. They're meant to be something that hits you just at the time that you need it to help you in that next step of your own journey. And this is one of those episodes because I know, because some of you have told me that that is what you do with the show. So for those of you who use this show that way, or maybe you never thought about it before and here's an invitation, this one is one for your pep talk playlist. This one is one for you to star, to favorite, to flag, so that the next time you know you have something you're trying to step up into, you've got me right in your ear, telling you exactly how to get past your own nonsense, because I'm going to share with you how I get past my own nonsense. So keep it in your pep talk playlist for when you need a hype woman, because I am ready to be head cheerleader on your hype team. So let's got it. I got you. First things first, let's talk about, I want you to stop treating that moment, the fear, the scare, the anxiety, the sweaty palms, the whole nonsense. Stop treating that like a stop sign. I want you to start treating it like a yield sign. Here's what I mean. So often when we are in that moment that we are afraid to try something new, we are afraid to take that next step, it's unfamiliar, we feel vulnerable, it's uncomfortable, If you're not used to those feelings, if change has been difficult for you in the past, or you've had some couple of big faceplant moments, I'm going to share with you some of my faceplant moments in this episode. Don't worry, you're going to hear them. You stop. You're uncomfortable, so you stop. And we're going to talk about the neuroscience of why that happens in just a second. But maybe you're the other side. Maybe you're a risk-seeking person. Maybe you're one of those people who you feel that and you just rip the Band-Aid off, you floor it. I used to be one of those people. And let me tell you, some of my wildest decisions have been made in the rushing through the discomfort just to get to the other side. And maybe if you're like me, you've had both sides, where because I was a rush through, I was like, oh, I'm uncomfortable. Let me just get this over with as fast as possible. Then I would get burned. And then I became a stop sign person, where I was like, whoa, now I'm just going to stay comfortable in the shell for a while. But what I learned was the shell was uncomfortable for a different reason. It was keeping me from growing into the person that I knew I was born to be. And so what I learned was it's not a stop sign, it's a yield. When you feel the uncomfortable things that come with being scared, being anxious, being worried about what happens next, slow the roll, because that's the chance to get more information. Now, maybe it's a little moment of anxiety, a little moment of discomfort, and then it's just take a few deep breaths, learn to listen to my nervous system, investigate my feelings, and push through the discomfort. Or if it's the big stuff, then we're talking about learning to listen to your nervous system over a longer period of time. And that's your tools like meditation, prayer, journaling, therapy, having good friends you can rely on. And this one's going to sound weird, but I mean it, long bouts of cardio, because then you're really tuning in the nervous system and learning to listen. Those things, when we do them regularly, reconnect us to a deeper sense of ourselves. And that deeper self is where we can tap in to feelings like calling and meaning. And so when I say don't treat it like a stop sign, treat it like a yield sign, I'm saying slow down, connect to that deeper sense of yourself. And then you're going to know the difference between the stuff where it's going, no, this is not for you. And the moments when it's, I'm afraid, but let's do it anyway. Because when we have big fear around something, when we feel scared of that next great step, that general alertness, that upregulation, that cortisol dump, that's telling us to pay attention because something is important. And then we can decide what is the meaning that we want to give that information from our nervous system. Because it's very possible that the things we're labeling as fear, the thing that you're saying like, oh, I'm scared to do that, I'm scared to try that, I'm scared of speaking in front of people, is the great cliche for a reason, is actually your nervous system to tell you, pay attention. So when we start to rethink of it as a yield instead of a stop, it means go slow, proceed, but with caution, gather information, and then you can decide what the meaning making is. So let's peel that onion one more layer. Let's take a closer look at what's actually going on underneath the hood. And I think that's going to help you see what I mean about investigating the information from your nervous system. So fear originates in the amygdala. The amygdala is a structure in your brain that pops that fight or flight response. It says, hey, pay attention to that. Hey, something might hurt us. Something might be dangerous. Something might be interesting. That's that flush, that rush. But your amygdala does not know the difference between a natural predator and like giving a presentation at work, right? Your amygdala doesn't know the difference, if we rewind the tape to elementary school, between somebody being a bully and you've got to give a book report. All that it does is sense uncertainty or the potential presence of danger, and then it kicks in that fight or flight response. It drops your adrenal hormones so that you upregulate, so that you're ready. Racing heart, sweaty palms, that mental ping pong of what if. That is all your most ancient wiring of your mind and your nervous system doing its thing. And it's important because it kept our evolutionary ancestors alive. Thank you so much. That is why we're here. We are the product of those that survived. But here's the trick. It's going to happen. You can't control that part. The trick is that you notice the reaction, you recognize it for what it is, you name it, and then we choose to move forward anyway. We make it a yield sign instead of a stop sign. And often people think that like those brave people that get up in front and they do the thing and they have such presence, they have such this, that we don't get scared, we don't get anxious, we don't get afraid. That is incorrect. We do. As somebody who routinely puts myself out there and has been doing that for decades, I've been making things on the internet since 1999. We do. We just do it anyway because we make it a practice. So let's talk about that. Because another myth is that there are those of us who are out there who are just like born brazen, right? Like I'm pretty extroverted. I'm out here putting all my business on the internet every week. Yes, there are some of us who are wired to be a bit more risk seeking. But if you know anything about neuroscience, you will have heard the phrase, the things that fire together, wire together. That is an adaptation that happens in the brain and in the nervous system that when synapses fire together, meaning at the same time, they rewire to have a stronger and stronger relationship. And when they don't fire together, that relationship dissipates. This is basic habit formation. So this is the thing, the example I've used on the show before is that I used to eat a lot of takeout and fast food back in my 20s before I got into fitness, before I got my diagnosis, all of that. And I was a chain smoker at the time. And I used to chain smoke cigarettes while I went to Taco Bell. And still, if I think about Taco Bell, if I think about my old order, beef Baja Chalupa, extra Baja sauce with the largest Dr. Pepper they make, if I think about drinking a Dr. Pepper, I want a cigarette. Things that fire together, wire together. It's Pavlov. And the more we engage in a behavior, the more we condition our mind and our nervous system toward that behavior. So the people who push themselves past this resistance, it becomes easier and easier to push past resistance because your brain literally adapts to working through it. And this is what it means to be brave, to have courage. It is not the absence. It is making the routine of making yourself uncomfortable a practice. I think of the way that people react when they see me post a video of doing a cold plunge. I often post to Instagram when I'm cold plunging and people are like, "Oh, I could never." You couldn't as long as you think that. But the more we make it a routine of pushing through the discomfort, the more we wire that into the nervous system. So every time you do something that scares you, it strengthens that relationship. Every time you build a new pattern in your brain, every time you expand your tolerance for uncertainty and for discomfort. And yes, I told you, I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you in just a minute, you fall on your face, you get sweat all over your shirt, you look ridiculous, you say something stupid and people hear it and they make fun of you. And guess what? You're still going to be here. They're still going to be, hiding behind their phones, not doing stuff. And you'll have grown. So yeah, I have tried a bazillion things that have made me uncomfortable and fallen flat pancake on my face. I took a promotion once when I worked for Equinox, and it ended catastrophically bad because I was really, really bad at that job. I mentioned I've had YouTube channels that went nowhere. I've had 3 blogs that totally failed. I had Kickstarter's very first web series. It was called Skip Trace, and it was about bounty hunters. I wrote it. I starred in it with my best friend at the time, and it was bad. It was fun. It was bad. But you know what? Doing all that made this happen because I wouldn't be doing better than fine if I didn't have all those reps. This show in itself happened because of a pep talk from a mentor of mine. Because I was scared. I was scared to fail again. And people believed in me. They pushed me to try. And here we are. And there have been some episodes of this show that I don't want to listen to again because I know they're not great. But even the bad ones, I think, still have done something positive, and I've had people reach out and say, yeah, that one helped me, even when I thought it wasn't that right. Here's one that I'm currently working through that you probably would not expect. And I say that because the few people I have confided into how I'm feeling about this have told me that I'm being ridiculous. But like I said about your amygdala, we don't get to just decide to not have that reaction. We've got to own that the reaction's happening so that we can work with it. So here we go. I have not taught a regular yoga class since the spring of 2019. And the class that I did have back when I lived in New York City was a private class. I rented a studio, I marketed it myself. I never taught in someone else's studio before, partly because I had this story in my head that nobody would want the kind of yoga that I teach. But there is a new rock gym opening up, a rock climbing gym, not far from my home here in upstate New York. They have a yoga studio and they're going to open later this month. And I'm going to be one of their very first yoga teachers in this new gym, in this new studio, in this new community. And I am absolutely terrified. I am scared that it is not going to be any good. I haven't done it in so long. I've never done it in a studio like this. But you know what? When I talked to the GM and when I did my demo with him and we had a conversation about yoga for rock climbing and why alignment yoga might be really good modality that's very different from what other people do and would they be into it, he was so excited. So I had to take a moment. I had to use my yield sign, not my stop sign. Just because I'm afraid doesn't mean I shouldn't do it. And once I owned up to myself that I'm being hesitant because I'm scared. Okay, well, why am I scared? Yield sign. Let me get some information. I'm afraid to fail. I'm afraid that people won't get it. I'm afraid that I won't be a good instructor anymore. Okay, well, what am I going to do with that? I'm going to not teach? No, I'm going to practice a lot, like a lot, like probably too much. Because I need to work harder to give myself the assurance that I can pull off the thing I'm afraid to do. And I'm someone who talks in front of people all the time. It is literally my job. And I've been teaching movement for 13 years, but not like this. It's the how that's new. And it's the how that scares me. And also, frankly, when I meditated, when I journaled, when I got quiet with myself and investigated why, it was because I have such reverence for yoga that I'm afraid to do a bad job and to misrepresent my teacher, who I greatly value. And once I dug into those intentions, then I started building classes that I actually think are better than my old classes because they're doing service to the information that my nervous system was actually trying to tell me all along, which was I was afraid I wasn't good enough because I wasn't looking deep enough to see why it was important and the meaning in the discomfort. So I work harder and I'll let you know how it goes. But I'm going to get feedback, right? I'm going to get feedback from my students, from the studio, from the community at that gym, and I'm going to learn. And that's going to make me better and hopefully them better. And, hopefully it's any good. So if you are listening to all of this and you are standing at the edge of something that scares you, here are some things I want you to remember. Fear is not the proof that you shouldn't do it. Being scared about taking that next step is actually the sign that it matters, that there's something important for you to pay attention to. You don't have to be fearless, and you really don't get a choice because your amygdala decides for you. But what you need to be is willing to try things, to learn things, and to fail and then try again. Because that is how human beings grow in the direction of our dreams. And so let me leave you from this episode with two of my favorite personal affirmations. These are things that I say to myself and to people around me all the time. So the first, you have done hard things before. This has gotten me through so many bad days. It's something that my mom and I say to each other all the time. You have done hard things before. So when you're in that acute moment where you're like, you have done hard things before. The second is one that I use in my self-care workshop all the time, because it's not uncommon in my self-care workshop for people to say that they're not doing anything right in their self-care. And to them, I say, you have survived 100% of the days that you have ever lived. Meaning that for all of the other times that you have been scared and worked through it and gotten through it and tried and whatever, you're still here. So it couldn't have been that bad. You have survived 100% of the days that you have ever lived, so you must be doing something right. And if this episode has been helpful to you, or you know someone who is also trying to grow up into their next iteration of themselves, share it with them. Share it if this has been helpful to you at all, or you think it would help them. Pass it along. Save it on your personal pep talk playlist so that you've got it nice and handy. And of course, I would love to hear your feedback on this and every episode of Better Than Fine. So if you want to shoot out, you can email me. It is info@darlene.coach. My Instagram is also darlene.coach. And my LinkedIn, you can find me very easily. I'm Darlene Marshall. And my website is, wait for it, darlene.coach. If you're a fan of the show, I hope that you have already subscribed. If you haven't, do that. Leave us a review. Sharing is caring. You know the drill. Thank you so much. Take good care of yourselves and be well.